stress and scenario testing, as I mentioned, sort of going to the heart of risk management. This type of scenario, which I think I'll play it out one way, might require a lot more capital on the books than perhaps was carried before in a good company to meet that 10 sigma type result. What will this mean to sort of the fundamental practice of risk management if we change to a stress or scenario-driven type of approach that might bring far worse outcomes into play? Any thoughts about that?
Yeah, I think that in recent years, with scenario testing in particular, with scenario analysis, what you're seeing is a lot of decisions that are made on scenarios where worst case scenario is not really worst case. The curve has moved downward from what the decisions were back when the decisions were being made. The environment has changed in the last year, so much so that 1 year ago, a scenario that was worst case analysis is now probably best case. And unfortunately, a lot of times when investing capital and doing things with capital, especially in the hotel business, and I would presume real estate as well, your investment is much further, it's a much longer lead time before you're actually seeing a product. So you're tying these funds up on a worst case scenario that's really much worse than you might have expected. So of course now, scenario analysis, we're changing the way that we're doing it, and we're dropping those numbers, and we're doing it from a much worse case perspective, and sometimes even those are still missing, and so that's causing some potential bad investments, and it's just creating more of a risk-averse situation and environment for those who are investing the funds. That's from the hospitality perspective.
I'm reminded of the Apollo 13 movie where they had the accident, the space module out in space on the way to the moon. And when the guys got back, fortunately, but when they had the Senate hearings with NASA leaders afterwards, they were trying to find blame. And they said, who do we blame? And one guy stood up and said, we blame our imagination. We imagined all the scenarios and had backup systems to address those. We didn't imagine this one would occur, which gets to stress testing, imagination. And I actually thought about a systematic, pervasive meltdown that we have incurred today, or we're living through today, a number of years ago. But I thought the probability of that occurring was so low, it was so remote, that while I knew it was possible theoretically, it was such a remote possibility or probability, that it really didn't factor into the decision-making process. So when we get to worst case, I think most of us have always done worst case to best case based on our perception of reasonable assumptions of best and worst case, knowing that it's, we can never get to worst. I mean, what is worst case? So I think what we'll wind up doing is we're going to wind up seeing a lot more stress testing, risk management evaluations of possible outcomes. And so the matrix, instead of having 16 squares, might have 30 squares or whatever it needs to have in it. But you still have those outliers, the worst and best case, that are going to be so remote from a reasonableness perspective, we're probably not going to put much weight on those for the long term. Over the next 12 months or 6 months or some time period, we're probably going to overweight those in our thought process because we're all biased by current events. So I think we'll wind up doing more, but I think it'll wane pretty quickly once we get back to a more normal environment, because those outlier cases are something that we really don't think of.
To build on that, if I will, I would encourage you to do two things. One, think international. A lot of the industries that you may get into in this country are, typically have a lot different business model, a lot different competition than they did 20 years ago. So you got to think second thing is think multi-dimensional. You know, I like your analogy of, you know, with 16 or 32. You know, well, maybe it's a three-dimensional risk matrix. Can I describe that? No. But what I'm saying is, you know, maybe your world is the top rate functions. I'm in finance, or I'm in accounting, or I'm in risk management. You know, stop and think across this way. Okay? If I'm thinking about risk, let's think about enterprise risk, cross-functional, cross-international. So broadening the context in which you even approach looking at a problem.